The former chief of staff under Bill Clinton and McLarty Associates chairman, Mack McLarty. And Mack, it's always great to see you. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Maria, my pleasure. Good Monday morning.
I mean, doesn't Howard Schultz now have an opening, given what we're seeing on the right and the left? I mean, the left in particular has lurched all the way to the radical left, talking about Medicare for all, abolish ICE, 70% tax rates. So does Howard Schultz actually have a path?
Well, we will see. President Macron in France ran as a third-way candidate, kind of bucked the traditional party system. Certainly, Howard Schultz is a person of accomplishment, of character. Starbucks is an iconic, a well-known brand, to say the least. He has international experience in his business. He has written a number of books. He's been very engaged with the military as well as his workforce. All of that will serve him well. But, Maria, third-party candidacies, as we've seen in the past with Ross Perot most recently and Ralph Nader, that's a different road, but these are different times, that's for sure.
The Democrats don't want him to run. I saw a funny picture of a Starbucks cup. You know how they used to write, let's talk about this, let's talk about race. They wrote, Howard, don't do it. So what do you think about that? The Dems don't want him in the race. Why not? Will he help Trump?
Well, I guess the Democrats thought that maybe 25 candidates was enough. We've got such a large field, and there are going to be various lanes, as I see it, swim lanes, if you will, in the Democratic primary of kind of the progressive wing, the more centrist down the middle ring with a number of former governors or sitting governors. Then you've got Mayor Bloomberg, likely to run on the Democratic side, and you've got former Vice President Biden is really the large figure to see what he's going to do. So you've got a lot of people in that race, and you've got obviously President Trump in the White House. That's going to be a big factor clearly in the Democratic primary. So we'll see how this plays out with Howard Schultz. It's a major development, no question about that.
Matt, Mitch Rochelle, we know who Trump's base is, and we know who the base is in general that all of the Democrat candidates are vying for. Would Schultz have a unique base that could be different that he could appeal to?
You know, it's the old kind of Mike Tyson comment, everybody's got a fight plan or a game plan till you get hit with the first punch. And until you get out there on the campaign trail and really connect with voters, and we've seen this with Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama on the Democratic side, certainly Donald Trump when he was a candidate, you just can't quite predict how this is going to play out. But I do think some of the polls show a large swath of Americans are disaffected with both parties. However, I'm a lifelong Democrat. You're going to have some very accomplished candidates in this Democratic primary. Let's see how all of this plays out, as we had a large field in the Republican primary in the last election cycle.
Well, with President Trump winning the White House, I feel like every CEO thinks they have a chance in this race. So as you mentioned, Mayor Bloomberg is probably going to run on the Democratic ticket as well. Do you think that they bring something different to the White House, to this race? I mean, do they stand out in your view?
Oh, I think each one of these candidates, really without exception, have a great narrative, a record of accomplishment, a lot to be proud of. None of them are perfect. I think Joe Biden's comment, compare me to the alternative, not to the almighty. So they'll have to deal with all of that. But certainly there is a attraction, there's a credibility with a business leader, particularly if he or she has been sensitive, engaged with their workforce, and has international experience, because clearly the two major responsibilities of any president are really prosperity, the economy, jobs, people's lives, and security and peace.
But Matt, well, let me go back to something I referred to earlier, and that is this lurch to the left. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, what can the Dems do at this point, facing so much radical idea, you know, from like an Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez with her 70% tax rate, or Bernie Sanders with Medicare for all, Elizabeth Warren trying to confiscate wealth or, tax assets. So tell me about the strategy to move to the middle. Is there one?
Well, I think there is. I mean, look, I think both parties have people with strong views that have different ideas. Some of them we agree with, some of them we don't. But I think, frankly, a lot of Americans don't think the current landscape is working for them very well, and that's what's brought forth some of these ideas. But you're going to have a good number of centrist candidates or people in the center with records in the Democratic primary. Of course, the Republicans obviously have a strong right wing vocal way of their wing.
Who would you say is in the center in the Dem Party right now?
Well, it's so many candidates. I'm hesitate to start naming off names, but you've got Governor McAuliffe, you've got Governor Hickenlooper, you've got Congressman Delaney. Mayor Bloomberg would certainly fit in that category. I think even Vice President Biden would fit in that category.
I wonder if they'll have a shot.
Oh,
really.
I think they will, Maria. We'll have to see, but I think they definitely will. And I probably left out 2 or 3 other people, including Mayor Landrieu, among others, in that list. So you pressed me, but I wanted to respond to you.
Thank you, Matt.
Matt, Lindsay Bell here. What about Joe Biden? You mentioned him a couple times. Is he going to run, and what does that do for Howard Schultz's bid? Does that put more pressure on him?
Well, I think you make an excellent point. I mean, again, this is... If anybody tells you that they know how this is going to turn out, as a political pundit once said, they're lying to you, I think. So it's very fluid, very unpredictable. But I think there's no question that Vice President Biden has somewhat of a singular standing because of his long and distinguished record. He's got a proven ability to work with the Congress, to work across the aisle. He clearly has a substantial international experience for many, many years serving on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. So my point is a lot of this political dynamic is going to kind of depend on how these candidates connect and who is nominated from each party. Assuming Howard Schultz does go forward, that will have a big impact on whether or not his candidacy, in my view, is successful.
Matt, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Always good to be with you.
Mack McLarty joining us there.